Alright, welcome back again to the Vintage Time Australia channel, where we have a purely Australian take on watchmaking. And what we're looking at today is the conclusion to the last 6139 BODGE job that I showed in a previous video. And it really has undergone quite a remarkable restoration. So you'll see here the dial just looks night and day difference to what it did before, and I've reloomed all the loom plots there and also the one on the indicator ring. We've also colour matched the minute counter to the second hand or the second sweep hand because they were mismatched. That one was the blood red and that is the tomato red, and it's the correct colour for both is tomato red or signal red, depending on what sort of red you're talking about. Also, fixing those faults has made the other dial faults much less obvious. So whereas before you could see quite a lot of faults on the dial, and you can't pick anything now until you've got it in the right light. And really that's one of the tricks that I use to hide faults when you've got some dial faults is if you fix everything else, you really don't notice any other faults. So that's where we've gone with that. So anyway, other things that we did with this watch, as noted in the last video, there were bits and pieces missing. So I've replaced the dial spacer ring. Also had to replace the case spring on this one as well. We had to put a new crown in it, and that's the only sort of crown I can get for these days. I can't get the dimple crown. I had to replace the stem as well. The stem was incorrect for this, so they used the 611 stem rather than the 612 stem, which is too long. So the problem with that is that no matter what you do, it's going to turn the indicator ring, which is really a fail for us. But anyway, it all works perfectly now. A few other bits and pieces as well. There's a few bits on the calendar that needed replacing. The calendar finger, the calendar finger on the calendar wheel needed replacing. A few other things that were done a bit weird. There's a cracked jewel in there as well, which I replaced. And what had actually happened with the chronograph system is that whoever took the hammer out just adjusted the chronograph finger so it did not touch the minute wheel anymore. And I suspect that was done because they couldn't figure out how to adjust it. So rather than actually doing the job properly, they just disabled it. So that's yeah, some really stellar watchmaking from the last idiot that was in there. But anyway, that's all fixed now, and I've adjusted it and it all works correctly and whatnot. Yeah, so the bezel rotates now as well, which it didn't really rotate very well before. And as I noted on one of the previous videos that only just went up, the big problem with that is this is actually quite an early example. So if we look at the back there, so this is a March 1969, and very early on in the run they changed the way that they did the indicator ring quite a few times. So if we just get out an array of indicator rings here, so this guy here, this is another very early indicator ring, and the way we can tell that is these ridges on the sides. So the later indicator rings don't have those ridges. And if we flip it over, where the problem was, and you should be able to see this on camera, there is an additional step inside that ring. So to key into that step, the dial spacer ring, which is this guy here, you can see there it's flat. For that step to key into, it actually has an additional machining chunk out of there. So you'll notice on the really early ones, I'm talking February, March, yeah, it's had that additional material taken out, which keys into the step. And the problem is if you're bringing one of these late rings onto the early watch, you can't actually get the indicator ring to sit properly on here and actually move. It literally does not go on properly. What has happened is the idiot watchmaker that worked on this last couldn't get it to work, so he just threw the ring in the bin. Now, the problem with these rings is that they're starting to get hard to find, and if idiot watchmakers would please stop throwing them in the bin and actually try to fix the problem properly, that'd be great. But if we have a look at this ring, we'll just have a look at, here's a yellow one. So this has got much less of that step in there. I don't know if you can quite capture that, but this has been messed around with before. So probably someone's had the same idea which I did, which was to remove the extra step to make it work with the later dial spacer rings. And here's a very late ring, and you'll note in there it just doesn't have that step at all. It's just straight up and down, and it might be a little bit hard to see, but you should be able to see it. So yeah, what will happen is this ring actually, that's the dial spacer ring that goes on there, and you can see there, moves. So with the additional step, that does not go on that ring properly. It like snaps down, doesn't move, and just pops back up all the time, which means that you just can't put the back on the watch because it keeps pushing the move. So what happens is it doesn't sit, the indicator ring doesn't sit flat, so it just pushes the whole movement down, which means that you then can't put the case back on because there's just not enough space for it to screw in. So what happened with this idiot is, instead of fixing the problem and troubleshooting it, he took the dial spacer ring out and also took the casing spring out, put it back together and said, see you later. So that's really how we've got into trouble with this. But anyway, moving on, all those problems are solved now, and this watch just works great. And it looks fantastic as well. I mean, it really is a miraculous recovery. Anyway, I'll leave that there. Thanks for watching, and yeah, you can see that even with a pretty rough watch, as long as the fundamentals are right, you can get a good result from the restoration, and it's definitely worth not giving up on. Alright, thanks for watching, and tune in again soon for some more videos.